Hi, I'm Matty O'Boyle with Reelier.com, and in this screencast we are going to cover something really cool. We're going to use the Melody ear training web app to practice playing bass lines and chords at the same time. So this is awesome for any instrument that can play a single melody note as well as more than one note at the same time, which would be harmony or a chord, right? So this is crucial for guitar players and crucial for piano players, and also for it's important, for accordion players. You can do this with the whole violin family, violins and cellos. You can do this with mandolins. So you can do this with banjos. So there's a lot of different instruments that this is relevant for. Let's see how we're going to do it. We're going to jump in here. I think we're going to work with a G chord today. Okay, so I just changed my reference note to G. And then I want this G chord, this G note to be a bass note on my instrument. I have my guitar here. So what I'm going to do is I know that the lowest G on my guitar is in the second octave. Okay, so now that reference note is going to be this note on my guitar. Perfect. So by default, our notes here are, the duration is set at a quarter note, but we are going to work with half notes. So instead of hearing a note on every beat of the metronome, I'm going to hear a note for every 2 beats of the metronome. But I'm not going to just sustain the note for 2 beats. I'm going to play the note and then the chord that the note names. So in this case, I'm just going to decide to work with a G major chord. I could decide to work with any chord I want, but I'm going to decide to work with a G major chord. So I'm going to play the note for 1 beat and then the chord for the next beat. And that's how the dictations go. Now, with just selecting one note, the dictation is going to be pretty repetitive, but I want to demonstrate what we're going to do. Now, the number of repetitions for the screencast, I'm going to put at 1. That way we hear a lot more examples than in the same amount of time. But I don't recommend changing that when you're doing your ear training and your skill building. Leave it on 2. Okay, let's get into it. So it's note, chord, note, chord, note, chord, note, chord, and that's the idea. Okay, so once you get the idea, let's add some new notes. I'm going to add a C. So now I'm going to be playing, if the note's a G, I play the G note and then the G chord, and if the note's a C, I play the C note and then a C chord. There we go. If you have your instrument, play along. Okay, so that's how you do it. Then of course you just add another note, like a D note, and then you cycle through that. Now, when you're doing that, this all sounds very basic right now, but there's a lot of ways to increase the complexity. Of course, one is, like I said, just add a new note. Another way is to go up to your metronome and slowly increase the metronome. So if it's at 60 by default and that's too slow for you, put it at 64. Do 10 or 12 exercises more, and if you get them perfect, then increase it to 68. Just slowly increasing it by 4 points. That's a great way to automate what you're doing. It just takes things out of your thinking mind and puts it into your automatic mind, right? So you just perceive and play, perceive and play, perceive and play until those 2 different acts meld into one, and you just hear it and play it, hear it and play it. And that's the way to do it. Don't make big jumps of your metronome. That's not the way to do it. Go slowly and consolidate, and you will be doing great. So you can see that you can do that with all these different chords. You could decide that your C chord and your D chord are going to be 7th chords, and your G chord is going to be a major chord. You can decide on whatever chord you're going to play. Okay? That's one way to approach this. And now we're going to see the next way to approach this. Another way to do this is, yeah, that's all good. Okay, another way to do this is not to change chords, but just add new and more complicated bass lines within your same chord. So typically, like I play a lot of kind of country and rock music, and when I'm playing guitar, and folk music, so from the United States. So what I'll do is frequently in those styles of music, the bass notes that I'm going to be playing are G's, D's, and B's in a G major chord. So I'll just set it up for G, B, and D and not change chords. Okay, and that would be demonstrating that. Now, if you want longer phrases, you could either make quarter notes and then play in between the notes. But to keep things consistent, what I would do here is I would go to my number of bars and increase it to 2. Now, listen. Whoops, I decided not to change chords and I was changing chords. Let me do it again. Or do it with me. Okay, so that's how that goes. You don't change chords in that second example. And of course, as you work your way up, to 140 beats per minute, listen to this. It sounds like music. Then you would repeat that, all in the G chord. Whoops. That's how it would sound. So you can really start to work your way up into this. And this kind of technique, if you're playing piano, playing guitar, or like I mentioned, those other instruments, decide on the chord you're going to play and use the bass notes, and you will go further, faster, and reach your music goals. Have fun with that.